The story that I'm about to share with you might make you never want to babysit again. Does anybody actually like babysitting? Because I feel like the idea of me being responsible for a kid, scary. Like, we don't need no scary story. So this girl says that she'd been taking care of her little cousin Tony for about 2 months. Tony had been staying with the grandmother, and unfortunately the grandmother had passed away. Tony's parents actually worked a lot, and because of this passing, they were gonna have to get used to having somebody take care of Tony, so they had assigned her to babysit him just for the meantime until they can figure out something else. She explains how it wasn't a big deal for her to take care of Tony. She really enjoyed him. He was a nice kid, and she actually took advantage of the fact that she had 2 months off, and that way her uncle and her aunt had time to, get somebody to take care of him. Now, out of nowhere, Tony got like a really big scratch on his face, and then the next day he had a bruise on his arm. Obviously, the parents were worried because he had a scratch and a bruise, and they went up to her and asked what happened, and she honestly had no idea. Tony also didn't say anything. He was at an age where he could talk, he could walk, like he could form sentences, and he would continue to get excited every time she would come to the house to babysit, every time he would see her. So it's obvious like she wasn't hurting him. She knew she wasn't hurting him, but he also wasn't telling his parents why he had a scratch, why he had a bruise, so nobody knew how he was getting this. Now, randomly, she would walk in on Tony talking by himself or him laughing like somebody said the funniest thing, but there was never anybody in the room with him. She would even try to surprise him and walk in his room to see if anybody else was in there, and there was no one there. So she knew that something weird was happening. Until then, she just thought that maybe that was him grieving, maybe he had made an imaginary friend, and she wasn't letting the fact that he had gone to something traumatizing because he actually saw the grandmother pass away. She was just like, maybe this is his form of, feeling normal, feeling like himself again. So she didn't think it was anything too strange at that point. After all of this, something happened, something that she was able to see with her own eyes that she still thinks about till this day. So she had gotten to Tony's house where he lived with his parents, and she was making him breakfast, and out of nowhere, Tony started crying and screaming at her saying, "Why did you pull my hair? Why did you pull my hair?" She ended up getting mad at Tony because she's like, "What do you mean? I didn't pull your hair, and you're obviously lying. That's not okay for you to be lying about things like that." After he calmed down a little bit, he accepted the fact that someone did pull his hair, but that he didn't see who it was, and because she was the only one in the house, he had blamed her. But he did say someone pulled his hair and that he was not lying about it. By that point, she was really angry because she did feel like Tony was lying, so she screamed at him and said, "Stop lying, lying's not okay, nobody pulled your hair," and she just left them, turned around, and continued to cook breakfast. Seconds later, after she had turned around to continue to cook, all she heard was Tony calling her name. "Sasha, Sasha, Sasha." He did sound very, very scared, so she immediately turns around to see what is going on. She runs to the kitchen table where he was sitting ready to eat, and when she gets there, she sees where his hair was actually lifted, like if somebody was holding on to it. Now, she says that Tony's hair wasn't super long, but it was long enough to where you can tell that somebody was definitely pulling his hair. She could tell that something or someone was pulling on his hair, and he was barely able to hold himself up on that chair. And in the moment where she saw his head yank like really hard, she ran to him and caught him because he was about to land head first on the floor. She grabs Tony and they leave the house immediately. She calls her aunt and uncle and tells them to come home because something crazy is happening. When they get there, they explain in detail what happened to his parents, and for whatever reason, they didn't seem too surprised about what they had just told them. After this, she refused to go back into that house, and the aunt and uncle would then drop Tony off at her house. And they did end up getting a priest to go and bless the home where Tony and the parents were living in. Eventually, she did stop taking care of Tony, and they got somebody more permanent, and the aunt and uncle did tell her that things have calmed down and nothing was bothering Tony. However, Sasha's mom would go and visit them from time to time, and she did tell her that every time she would go, it just felt like something heavy was in there, especially when Tony would come around. She says that the weirdest thing was that this is only happening at his house because anytime Tony would come over to theirs, there wasn't anything weird, anything heavy, like nobody was bothering him, so something's definitely going on with the house. But what do you guys think?
Hello and welcome back to a series of spooky stories, The Haunted Tea Spill. This series is brought to you by all things spooky and ungodly amounts of paranormal activity. Switching it up again, the OGs that made these jewelry companies like me. They're cute, they're down here if you want a gardening break. We're back. I have tons of spooky stories from different workplaces and houses that I've lived in. This story is based on a local business I was a manager for that's located in a very old farmhouse that was converted into a retail space. It's haunted to the point that we had a nickname for the ghost and hosted ghost hunters every October. Because of the age of the house, sound traveled very easily. I could hear the creak of the front door open from anywhere in the house, typically indicating that a customer came in. I could hear footsteps throughout the different levels of the house. The main retail space was on the main floor, and we hosted events in the basement, which was an authentic Rathskeller. Rathskeller? What the fuck is that? Google Rathskeller. A beer hall or restaurant in a basement. So a bar in a basement? Why can't we just call it a bar in a basement? I digress. While Bob mostly stayed on the staff side of the basement, which was not a part of the Rathskeller, he would frequently wander throughout the house. Was this Bob's house, by chance? The amount of eyes I felt on me in that basement was indescribable. I could feel when he was in the same room and even feel his mood. Did y'all hear the thunder? It's storming right now, and it's the perfect time to tell a spooky story. Ambiance, you know? He did not like us being on the staff side of the basement, and he would sort of transmit his displeasure about us being there, so we knew to leave. You ain't gotta tell me twice, Bob. I'm out. When this happened, I would talk to him and let him know that I'll only be there for a minute, and the feeling would typically leave. Bob, I swear to God, I don't want to be here any more than you want me to be here. Anyway, this particular morning, I was alone in the house, and I was going between the basement and the Rathskeller, setting up for a private event that night. A beer basement. I'm just gonna call it a beer basement because I feel like I'm saying that wrong. I was moving tables and chairs around when I got the feeling that he was watching me and didn't want me there. This was normal, and I said what I usually said, but the feeling intensified instead of leaving. He was sick and motherfucking tired of you being there. I began rushing around as it was continuing to increase. I even began to shake, beginning to think that something terrible was about to happen. That's when I heard the front door open upstairs, and footsteps began walking around the main retail space. Relieved that a customer showed up, I ran up those stairs so fast my heart was pounding. Only there was no one in the front entryway. Confused, I opened the front door and the only car in the lot was mine. I was so scared that I decided that Bob can have this victory, and I stayed upstairs until other stuff began to show up, so I wasn't alone in the house and could go finish setting up for the party. Bob had had enough. Bob said, "You're gonna get out of here one way or another." But he also did it in a polite manner. He didn't really scare the shit out of you, throw stuff at you or make the lights flicker. He just made you think that someone was there so you'd get the fuck out. And for that I say, Bob, what kind spirit you are. Thanks for reading, and let me know if you want to hear about Bob's cologne freaking us out or how my house was built on native land directly next to a cemetery. That sounds entirely too coincidental. Anyway, rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least scary, creepy, spooky, 10 being the most. If you have a story of your own that you want to submit, you can do so on the link tree in my profile. I will see y'all at the next episode. Stay spooky, friends.
What they do next will genuinely creep you out. In the video, a mom films her twin daughters standing on opposite sides of a wall, completely separated. She starts giving them simple instructions. Hold up a number. Both raise the same one. Then she tells them to stand on one leg, same leg. Spin in a circle, same direction. At first it feels like coincidence, maybe just twins being in sync. But then it keeps going, dance move identical, superhero pose exactly the same. Even when she asks them to make a silly face, they do it at the same time, the same way. That's when it starts to feel off, because they can't see each other and they're not hesitating. It's instant, they already know. And then comes the moment that people can't explain, they both slowly smile. Not normal smiles, the same eerie, almost intentional expression. That's when the comments started asking, are they just extremely connected or something more? So what do you think, just twins being in sync, or does this feel a little too perfect? Let me know in the comments.
What would you do if your friend kept trying to talk to the dead for fun, and then one night in a cemetery, she changed completely? This is After the Fire Stories, where I tell scary stories after the fire has gone out. So grab your favorite snack, your emotional support drink, and settle in, because today's story is about a woman who says that she went to the cemetery with her friend and she never saw her again. Hi, I've never told this to anyone before all the way through, and even then, I left parts out because saying it out loud makes me feel insane. This happened only a few years ago when I was in college, and I'm not old, this wasn't decades ago, and I still think about it all the time because I genuinely do not know what happened to that girl after that night. I knew her from school. We weren't best friends exactly, but we had a few classes together and started hanging out because we both stayed up late and lived in the same general area off campus. She was kind of odd, but not in a bad way. Quiet, kind of intense, and very into death stuff, old cemeteries, spirit communication, all things like that. She was one of those people who had some weird story or some theory about energy or the dead listening if you were in the right place at the right time. She didn't really have social media and didn't seem very close to anybody, and she had a couple acquaintances, but no big friend group. I think that's part of why I ended up hanging out with her more than I otherwise might have. I felt a little bad for her, honestly. And at first, it was harmless. She liked going to old graveyards at night, and I know that sounds like the beginning of a bad idea because it was, but at the time, it felt more stupid than dangerous. We'd drive out somewhere old, walk around, read names on headstones, maybe sit in the car and talk, and she would bring candles and sometimes, or ask questions out loud just to see. I always thought it was embarrassing more than scary, and I went because I was bored. She kept talking about wanting proof. That was her word. She said people are always around the dead and nobody notices because nobody really listens. I told her I was not trying to get haunted over some random Tuesday, and she'd laugh. The night everything happened was in October. I remember that because it was cold enough when I wore a hoodie and wished I'd brought a heavier jacket. We drove out to this old cemetery, maybe 20 minutes off campus. It was small and there was trees around it. No houses right next to it, and we had been there once before during the day and it looked normal enough. At night, it felt different right away. I should have trusted that and left. She had brought a bag with candles and some old-looking little board thing, not exactly a Ouija board, but basically the same energy. I told her I was not helping with that, and she said fine, I didn't have to. She'd set up near the older section with shorter stones and one big tree. I remember being irritated because the ground was damp and I didn't want to stay there that long. At first, nothing happened. She sat there asking questions in this low voice and pausing, asking more questions, and then getting annoyed when nothing answered. And I was standing a few feet away with my phone flashlight, mostly wanting to go home. And then she got very still. I asked if she was okay, and she didn't answer me. I thought maybe she was trying to scare me, so I told her to stop. Still nothing. Then she started breathing heavily, differently, deep and slow, like she'd run a long way and was trying to calm down. I took a few steps closer, and that's when she said, in a voice that was not hers at all, "Don't stand there." I actually laughed for half a second because it felt so fake that my brain didn't catch up right away. And then she lifted her head and looked at me. I don't know how to explain her face other than it looked wrong. Not like movie possession head spinning. Her mouth looked stretched, too wide somehow, like the muscles around it were pulling in a way I had never seen on a real person. And her eyes looked unfocused but locked on me at the same time. I backed up immediately and said her name, and she stood up way too fast. That's the part I still see in my head. 1 second she was on the ground, and the next she was upright. She didn't wobble or push herself up off the ground. She was just up somehow. Then she started walking toward me. Not running at first, just walking. Her head tilted a little to one side, and she kept making this low sound in her throat like she was trying to clear it. I kept saying her name louder and louder, and finally she said again in that deep voice, "You brought me one." Then she ran at me. I turned and ran too. I could hear her behind me, and I know people will probably say maybe she was just having some kind of mental breakdown and chasing me, except I could hear her laughing and then making this choking noise and then laughing again like it hurt. I got to my car and fumbled the keys so bad I thought I was going to die right there because my hands would not work. I finally got in, I locked the doors, and when I looked up, she was standing in front of the car. Just standing there. Then she bent down a little and looked in at me through the windshield and smiled. And her mouth looked too big. That is what I remember the clearest. I threw the car in reverse so hard I almost hit a stone, turned around, and got out of there. I did not call the police. I know maybe I should have. At the time, I was young and terrified, and all I wanted was to get away from her and that place. I drove back to campus and sat in a grocery store parking lot for probably over an hour. I kept expecting her to call me, and she never did. The next day, I texted her and tried calling, and she never picked up or responded. I went by the apartment building she lived in, and I didn't know her unit number, just the building, but I never saw her again. I asked around a little bit after that without sounding too crazy. Most people barely knew her. One girl from one of our classes said she thought maybe she dropped out, and another person said they heard she moved. Nobody seemed certain. Nobody seemed especially concerned either, which honestly bothered me. But she was quiet and didn't have much of a circle, so I guess people just accepted it. It only had been a couple years, but still, she never had any socials that I knew about, so I couldn't check on her that way either. And I still think about whether I should have gone back and looked for her that night. And then I think about the way she looked standing in front of my car, and I know I wouldn't have. I don't go near cemeteries at night now, not even for normal reasons, and I don't mess around with any of the talk to the dead stuff anymore either. Absolutely not. Her standing and smiling at you through the windshield would completely, I think, ruin my sleep for the rest of my life. This has been After the Fire Stories. If you have any scary stories or paranormal experiences, then go ahead and send them in to me, and I might read yours next.
Can we show them the older homestead?
Yeah, let's go. As you know.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Was that you?
Yeah, that's on either side.
They went to both.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I think Coraline is a true story because I lived part of that movie when I was 5 years old, years before it came out. So when I was about 5 years old, around 2004, my family and I lived in this small 3-bedroom apartment. So I would always sleep with my mom and dad when I was 5 years old, and I remember that their bed was like against the wall because that's always where I used to sleep. So my father would be in the middle and my mom would be on the outside of the bed, and it was a pretty large bed. So one morning I wake up and I feel conscious, right? I feel conscious, but I don't know if I was awake or not. And I remember seeing this small door on the wall, like right when I woke up, it was right next to me. But the problem is that this door wasn't normally there. The door was like this dark gray color and it was like tin and it was this run down small door. I decide that I'm gonna open the door, right? So I go over to the door, I open it up, and then I look back to see if my mom and dad are asleep. They were sound asleep. So at this point, I'm debating whether I should crawl in. Let's just say that it was dark in there, but I did decide that I was gonna crawl inside. Why? I do not know. Mind you, all this felt so real to me. I could feel everything. I could smell the room. I could feel the cold air. Like literally, I could still feel it to this day. So I decide to stand up. Now, I am scared at this point, right? I'm only 5 years old, but I am still curious. Just standing there for a second when I hear psst at the small door. So I look back, right? It's my mother. She has these pitch black eyes. I'm telling you, her eyes were so dark, it seemed shadowed. I remember she's on the outside of the door, right? So I'm looking at her from inside of this dark little place that I'm at, and she's on the outside of the door. So I'm looking at her with these dark freaking eyes, and she starts smiling at me, and the smile was so terrifying, I cannot even explain it to you. And she just slams the door shut behind me. So at this point, I am terrified. I start screaming, "Mom, mom, mom, mom." I'm trying to wiggle the door. The door is not opening. I'm totally trapped in this dark place. I remember literally hyperventilating, and then I kind of just like somehow calm myself down, and I just put my hands over my face like this because I was so terrified. I just didn't want to look at anything. A few seconds go by, right? And I hear something behind me in this dark room. I hear like this whimper, like this small, quiet cry. So at this point, I'm like, no, 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 no. And I just turn my head like super slowly. And I peek through my fingers to see this small, old-fashioned bed with like this metal bed frame. It's in like the left corner of the room, right? And on top of the bed is like this glowing white blanket. Something or someone was underneath that blanket. So I know this sounds insane, but I was just a curious kid. So I walk slowly over to the bed. I reach for the blanket at that point, but before I can even grab it, 3 kids just come flying out of the blanket, like literally flying out of the blanket. And these little kids are see-through, right? So I'm panicking. I fall to the floor because it scared me so bad. So I'm looking up at them and I can see that there is 1 little boy and 2 girls. They were clothed in like these old-fashioned clothes, and they were hovering above me saying, "Help me, help me. And they start talking to me, and I'm like talking back to them at this point, but I cannot remember exactly what they were saying or what I was saying to them. I just sat there with them for like what felt like 30 minutes until finally the oldest girl that was there was like, listen, you need to go back home. You need to go. She starts leading me to the door, but I remember that I cannot go through that door. I couldn't go through it earlier, so I tell her that. I'm like, listen, I already tried to go through this door. It wouldn't open. And that's when she tells me, you can't go through life panicking. Calmly try to open the door again. So I try it and it opens. And as I'm looking out into the room, it's extremely blurry. Like I cannot really see what's on the outside of it. But I did see my mom and dad and they were still like sleeping on the bed. And so I turn around and I thank the girl. But at this point, I'm curious. I'm not really that scared anymore. So I ask her, like, how did you pass away? And that's when she said, we were curious just like you were. And then she floats back to the bed with the rest of the other two kids and they just get under this glowing blanket. I crawled out of that place as fast as I possibly could. I go and lay down next to my dad and I fall asleep. A few hours later, I wake up and I get out of bed and I look over to where that door was and it's not there anymore. So I go downstairs and I see my mom making breakfast. I acted like it never happened. I never said anything to my mom, but whether it happened to me or not is not the crazy part. This is the crazy part. Fast forward to 2009 and there's advertisements everywhere about the movie Coraline. So I watched the movie maybe 2 years later. Like I think it was like 2011-ish, I think at this point. And I tell you now, I was shocked, flabbergasted, like stunned when I saw that movie. When I saw that, I literally questioned whether I had told anybody about that story before. I questioned myself that, but I didn't. I never told anybody that story before. Now, if you watch that movie and you go to 58 minutes and you see the scene, you see exactly what I saw that night in that exact room. Those exact kids. And the mom looks so similar to my mom. It's scary. The only thing, there was no door. When I tell you, I freaked out after that movie finished. Who would believe me? Is this even real? I actually kept this to myself until right now. I've never told anybody before, ever. But I wanted to tell somebody because every time I tried, I would literally choke up. So I had to tell Kaisa, which is me, because that wasn't my story. That was a story that was sent in to me. What do you guys think about that? That is pretty wild. I will say, I've never seen the movie Coraline, but I've heard about it. I actually don't even know the plot. I know nothing about it at all. I guess I need to watch it because it's a horror film and people talk about it all the time and I cannot believe I have not seen it. Guys, when I tell you I've been so bad, I used to love scary movies, but I'm doing spooky stories and working all the time now, so I never get a chance to like sit down and enjoy a scary movie. So I have never seen that movie, so shame on me, but I have to watch it now. I have to watch it now because that is crazy. The whole mom thing when she slams the door is so scary. I don't know how much this was, I don't know how similar this was to the exact plot of Coraline, but to what she made it sound like it was very similar, so I'm assuming it's very similar. You guys will have to tell me in the comments, but what do you guys think this was? Like, this is so strange because it's a movie, right? This is something that someone directed, and did they have the same experience as maybe she had, or was this just a huge coincidence? Because she said those were the exact kids. So did she have a premonition of the movie? Or do those kids really exist? Like, that's wild to me. So leave all your thoughts, opinions, and suggestions in the comments, please. And also let me know if you guys like it when I tell stories in first person. I figured this one would be easiest to tell in first person, but if you like it better when I tell them the other ways, drop it in the comments. If you like it better this way, drop it in the comments. If you don't really have a preference, then you can also drop that in the comments because I want to know going forward what you would like me to do. And sorry I haven't posted in a few days, you guys. I have been on a business trip and that's the only reason why. So this isn't going to be something that's normal. I'm going to continue to post at regular schedule, but drop your thoughts, opinions, suggestions down below. As always, please be respectful, and I'm going to do my favorite part, which is the shout outs. Flip flop for you _ thank you so much for the comment you left. That was so nice. You have no idea how much I appreciated that. It just felt so genuine the way that you said it, and it made me feel so good. You said that I was a good storyteller and you went into like detail of why, and I really appreciated that more than you know. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for leaving that comment. Thank you for being a part of my community, and thank you for being kind. It just made my day, and I hope you know that, and I just wanted to let you know that you are the best. I love you. Joni778, you said that I was your favorite. Yes, I love that so much. Thank you. I love hearing that. Thank you so much. You have no idea what that means to me. That means so much to me because there are so many amazing creators on here that tell spooky stories, and to be your favorite is just such an honor. So thank you so much for saying that. Thank you for being a part of my community. Thank you for supporting me and leaving nice comments and pushing my videos out. I hope that you are here to stay. I cannot tell you how much that meant to me. I love you. And with that being said, my name is Kaisa, and I tell you your paranormal experiences on here or ones that you recommend to me about 5 nights a week. So if you're into that, hit that follow button, and I just need you to do 3 things for me. And what are those? Keep sending me your scary stories. Have a safe night. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. I just cracked my voice. Love you so much, my spooky babies. I'll see you in the next one. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
And I couldn't be a police officer because this is my city. It's 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and me and my buddy Ron decided, let's go to Tim Hortons. We pull up to Tim Hortons, and I get a donut. Ron, greedy ass, get 2 donuts and a breakfast sandwich. While we sitting there eating, we see a car zoom past us, going 75 and a 30. I look at Ron. I say, let's get in a fucking car now. We hop in the car, put the lights on. Way yo. I'm speeding fast, trying to catch up with the car. The car see me, and they pull over. I walk up to the car. He roll his window down. I look at him. I say license and registration. I walk back to the car, and I get a license to Ron. I make my way back to the car. I say, Dave, it's really dangerous to be doing 75 and a 30, buddy. I say, look, I'm sorry. I didn't even know I was going too fast. Hop out the car. I put my gun at him. I say, get out. Get out the car. Hands up, Dave. My buddy Ron hop out the car. He goes, Jones, what are you doing? What are you doing? I say, I'm doing my fucking job. I say, Jones, no. This is abuse of power. You don't need to be doing. Take the baton from around my waist. I shove it down Ron's throat. And I pull it out his ass. I put it in Dave's mouth. I say, Dave, you don't speed in my fucking city. Are you crazy? There's kids that live on this street. And I write him a ticket, and he goes on his way. Following day, I'm just patrolling the area. I hear, help, help. A big, tall man robbing this old lady. I put my lights on. The man take off running. Get back here. Get back here. I'm running after him. Bitch. Now my hands are shaking, my head is spinning. I love this shit. I tackle him to the ground. I start punching him. You don't fucking rob. I grab the purse. I put it in my car, and I ride around looking for the old lady. As soon as I find her, I hop on my truck, and I say, ma'am, are you okay? Here's your purse. She walks up to me grateful. She goes, thank you so much. It's good to know we still have good police officers. I hand the purse to her. I said, no problem. Give me the fucking bag. What? Give me your money. Give me your money. I rob her for her purse too. 3 days after that incident, I'm sitting in my car on break. I get a call from the chief. I say, hello, chief, what you need? He goes, Jones, I'm getting rumors and complaints that you're terrorizing the fucking city. I was gonna consider desk duty until I found out about the old lady. You're fired, effective immediately. I said, chief, no, please don't fire me. He goes, no. You're fired. I say, Chief, you know what? You're right. I need to get help. I have a power issue. My brain just go crazy anytime I'm in a position of power. I'm gonna get help. Chief says, yeah, it's best that you get help. I say, yeah, but Chief, before you hang up, can you please do me a quick favor? He goes, what is it, Taj? What? Just look outside your window real quick. He says, Taj, I don't have time for your game. I say, Chief, please just look outside your window and I'm done. After this, you won't have to do anything else for me. He sighs and he goes, you know what? Okay. Chief opens up his window. He goes, Jones, what am I looking for? I say, Chief, look up. He looks up and it's a sniper on the building. Sniper pointing directly at the chief. I say, Chief, am I still fired, Chief?
What the fuck was that? Bro!
What's going on around you?
I don't know. I'm frozen. I am frozen. Did the window break?
አሁን የምነግራችሁን ታሪክ አዳምጣችሁ ልክ ነው ወይስ አይደለም ብላችሁ ትፈርዳላችሁ። It's scary story time. Don't mind my hair. I just woke up, so ተንጨብረራችሁ ቤዚክ ማንነቴን መግለጽ አልፈልግም ግን ታሪኬን መናገር ፈልጋለሁ። ይሄ የተፈጠረው ክርስቲያን ከመሆኔ በፊት ነው። ልጅ እያለሁ ጥንቆላን ኤክሰርሳይዝ አደርግ ነበር። ሶ የተለያዩ አይነት ዊች ክራፍቶችን ሞክር ነበር፣ መጽሐፍቶችን አነብ ነበር። ሶ በ19 ዓመቴ ልጅ ነበረኝ፣ ተከራይቼ ሞጥቼ ነበር። ቤዚክሊ ለእድሜ ማቹርድ ነበርኩኝ። በዛ እድሜ እንደ እድሜ አልነበረም ማስበው፣ የበሰለ አይምሮ ነበር የነበረኝ። ሶ እንደዛ እየኖርኩኝ በነበረበት ሰዓት የሆነ ልጅ ተዋወቅኩ። ከልጁ ጋር በጣም ቅርብ መሆን ጀመርን። በየቀኑ መገናኘት ጀመርን፣ አብረን መዋል ማምሸት ጀመርን። ሶ በጣም ተቀራርበን ስለነበረ ሙቭ አድርገን አብረን መኖር ጀመረ። በጣም ተዋደን ስለነበረ ከሷ አረገዝኩኝ። በዚህ ጊዜ ቤተሰቦቹን ሊያስተዋውቀኝ ወሰደኝ። ቤተሰቦቹን ሊያስተዋውቀኝ ሲወስደኝ ግን ስለ ወንድ አያቱ አንዳንድ ነገሮችን ነግሮኝ ነበረ፣ ጥሩ ያልሆኑ ነገሮች። ሶ ወንድ አያቱ 8 ልጆች አሉት። በጣም ሰካራም፣ ሰዎችን የማይወድ ኢሞሽናሊ ዲስታንት እና ጨካኝ የሆነ ሰው ነበር። 8 ልጆቹን አንድ ክፍል ውስጥ ነበር የሚያስተኛቸው። በቂ ምግብና መጠጥም አይሰጣቸውም። የባሌ እናት ነበረች እየሰራች የምታበላቸው ነበር፣ ወንድም እህቶቿን ማለት ነው። ሶ ይሄንን ከነገረኝ በኋላ ወደ ቤት ወሰደኝ፣ ተዋወቅኳቸው ቤተሰቦች። ሶ ቤተሰቦቹን ልተዋወቅ የሄድኩት ኦልሬዲ ሁለተኛ ልጅን ከወለድኩ በኋላ ነበር። ታዲያ ባሌ በጣም አስጠንቅቆኛል፣ ሁለቱም ልጆች ወደ አያቱ መቅረብ እንደሌለባቸው። ከዛም ወደ ቤታቸው ከሄድኩኝ በኋላ እራት እየበላን እናቱ ስለ አያቱ ማውራት ጀመረች፣ ስለ አባቷ ማለት ነው። ግልጽ ሆና በጣም ብዙ ነገር ነገረች፣ ሰውየው ያደርጋቸው የነበረውን ነገር ሁሉ። ከ8ቱ ልጆቹ መሀል ደግሞ አንዷ ሴት ልጁን በጣም እያስገደደ ብዙ ነገር ያደርጋት ነበር። ሁሉንም ይደበድባቸዋል፣ እሷንም ይደበድባት ነበር፣ ይደፍራት ነበር። በዚህ ጊዜ ልቤ በጣም ተነካ፣ ሰውየውን እጅግ በጣም ፈራው። የዛ ቀን ምሽት ወደ ቤቴ ከሄድኩኝ በኋላ ጨረቋ ሙሉ ስትሆን ጠብቄ እዚህ ሽማግሌ ላይ ፍትህ እንዲያገኙ ልጆቹ ያቺ ሴት ልጁ ፍትህ እንድታገኝ ድግምት ደገምኩበት። በጣም ከመፍራት የተነሳ ልጆቼን ፕሮቴክት ማድረግ ነበር የፈለኩ። ፕሮቴክት ለማድረግ ደግሞ እማቀው ሜተድ እናም ደግሞ ሳደርገው የነበረው ይሄ ዊች ክራፍቱን ወይም ደግሞ ጥንቆላውን ነበር። ስለዚህ በዛ መልኩ ሙሉ ጨረቃ ስር ጠነቆልኩኝ። ከአንድ ሳምንት በኋላ የባሌ እናት ደውላ አባቷ በጣም እንደታመመና የደም ካንሰር ወይም ሉኬሚያ እንደተገኘበት ነገረችን። በጣም ደነገጥኩኝ። እንደዚህ በፍጥነት ይሰራል ብዬ አልጠበቅኩም ነበር። ሰውየውም ከተወሰኑ ቀናት በኋላ አረፈ። ቀበር ነው። ውስጤ ግን ጸጸት ሊሰማኝ አልቻለም። ልጆቼን እንዳዳንኩኝ ፕሮቴክት እንዳደረግኩኝ የተሰማኝ፣ ለዛች ፍትህ ላጣች ልጁም ፍትህ እንዳስገኘውላት ነው የተሰማኝ። አሁን ይሄን ታሪክ ማወራው የድሮ ታሪኬ ስለሆነና አሁን ክርስቲያን ስለሆንኩኝ ነው። ሶ ጋይስ what do you think? ልክ ናት ወይስ ልክ አይደለች? ኮሜንት ሴክሽን ላይ ጻፉላት፣ ታያዋለች።